Now I'm playing with power. Oh, Carlos, lend me your ear. Oh, do you think I'm your daddy? Kids.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Sequel. This is the movie podcast where we're talking sequels, and we do it in two parts. The first, an interview with an actor or someone involved that made the film worth watching, and the second, a discussion of the sequel, what they got right, what they got wrong, and how it could have been better. Really hope you enjoyed last week's interview with special effects artist, master, makeup artist, Jeffrey S. Farley. Jeff was so great to tell us so many behind-the-scenes stories from the remake of The Blob. And I loved hearing about, even though it got cut from the sequel that we're going to be covering this week, really cool behind-the-scenes stories from Jeff. He was great. So if you haven't listened to that, wait till after this week's review, because I think this is going to be different, I think, discussing this, because we've covered other ones that are trying to end the franchise, like really end it. So it would be great. So, of course, we're talking Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, not The Final Friday, which sometimes I say because they came out around the same time, so one copied the other. Before we talk about this caricature of a movie, when it comes to Freddy, he really jumped the shark in this one. But before I do that, I got to introduce you to my partner in the sequel watching journey, Jamie Riccardi. Jamie, how are you?
I've been better. I'm a little sick right now. You know, I got a little thing called COVID, so I might sound a little nasally. Okay. Or you might think it's like my sexy voice. You know, either way,
Ooh.
Yeah. But you know, I'm really upset about this movie, and I like to come out and just tell you my feelings right away. I'm a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan, and I haven't seen this movie in a long time. This movie's terrible. I mean, it's because I feel like it hurts the franchise, especially being the fact that if this is what they thought was the final nightmare, like the last one, like let's go out with a bang, they went out with a dud. Like it was, I feel like it was no script. It was awful. I really thought it was awful, and I feel like it made a mockery of the entire series. Yeah,
so I have to agree. Like, we've covered like the movies that quote unquote try to end the franchise. Obviously, like final chapter, Friday the 13th, like Joe Zito went into that thinking he was ending. Obviously that didn't happen. But like when it really got to the point where like, hey, the well's dry, like Jason Goes to Hell, that movie was like, let's try something totally different. The only thing I do think it's so funny when it comes to these movies that we cover, especially the sixth ones in the franchise, like thinking back to an earlier one that we covered, like Police Academy 6, like the fact that there's so many things from this one that are the quotes that so many people know. The Carlos scene, the Breckenmeyer, the Johnny Depp getting hit in the face with the frying pan. And that's what's kind of phenomenal about Freddy versus a bad Michael Myers movie. Out of a bad Michael Myers movie, there's not much to quote. Like, we just cover Resurrection. Like, there's not a ton in that you're like, oh man, I'm going to remember this. This, you remember Freddy playing the video game, the power glove, so many parts of it.
Well, I think the difference is, you know, again, Freddy always had that humor, right? So you're going to remember, you know, with his humor, he had all those one-liners, the 80s one-liners, you know, through every movie. A big part of the problem, I mean, of this movie is, it was almost like a Looney Tunes adult, like a horror movie, because it wasn't even scary. Yep. It wasn't hard. It was like silly. Like it was a silly movie. Like there was no scary at all. Nothing really gross. And it was just like, I mean, when Breckenmeyer scene, yes, it's a famous scene, but like it was a silly scene when he was bouncing around the house. Like it was just like, this is how they want to end it. Like, I don't know. I really feel like it dumbed down the whole series, like this, and for them to walk away saying, you know what, this is our last one, let's go out with a bang. They really did not go out with a bang.
No, you're right. And you know what, Robert Englund, the behind the scenes, which I'm going to reference a few times while we do this, because I think for all of those movies, especially horror movies, I don't know why I'm so intrigued by it, just because they were supposed to be like almost standalone movies. Like no person besides the Halloween trilogy that just came out, nobody ever had the reins of being like, you know what, I'm going to set up a movie, and then the second one will be action, and the third one I'm going to close the story. So everybody only had like one shot, like all these directors. But when it comes to this one, Robert does say he's like this Looney Tunes moment when he's pushing that bed of nails and he stops and wipes his forehead. You're like, this is a cartoon. He said he was like Wile E. Coyote, and it's true.
He really was. And I mean, again, yes, he had funny, like, if I knew going to this was a standalone, not a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and it was just a horror comedy, it would have been great. But knowing that it's Freddy Krueger, who became like a silly character, it took the fear out of it. It took I don't know. The only part I really laughed at is when the guy thought he was his father and he goes wrong, the way he said wrong. Like I just but even his face, like when you see some of the close-ups, it almost looks like a mask. You know, where in the old ones it looked more realistic. Like here, it looked like a Halloween mask, and it was just, I don't know. We got to get into it.
No, I know what you mean. No, it wasn't as good as the other makeup.
No, it looked rubbery. It looked rubbery.
Yeah. I think when it comes to Freddy versus the other people, for the other slashers, not anybody could play them because there's ones that are better than others, but anybody can have a shot at playing them. With Freddy, it's only him. And I think he was almost not himself because Robert became a huge forever, like he's Freddy Krueger and can really
he's a Hall of Famer. He's the horror Hall of Fame. So yeah,
100%. But I think it kind of killed him. If you ever watch any of those Never Sleep Again docs, when they talk about like the Freddy hotline, the Freddy nightmares, and he's like having dolls and like a 1-900 number, like there was all these things. So it became cartoon because they got to the point they were probably like, do we cash the checks or do you continue to scare the shit out of people? Because what changed everything was, the first movie had like a few one-liners, maybe
barely. The first one was a horror movie. Like the first one was definitely a horror movie. Second one, I think they added a little bit more, and then it got humor, each one they got sillier and sillier. And but I think the problem is, as a horror character, he's also a likable horror villain. Where, you have Michael Myers and you have Jason, they're like serial killers, right? They're human almost, because you can't see their face. So, you picture someone that's human going around killing people, where Freddy is almost a cartoon character himself because every death is different. And he makes the deaths almost cartoony in a horror way. So I think that's why he's more likable. That's why they had cartoons on him and things like, even kids liked him so much because he really wasn't as scary as he came across.
Oh yeah, no. And I think it was the third movie that really changed it. Like, and that's we'll get right into the movie now. But the beginning of it, the movie, you see that really like very like Shakespearean quote about like dreams about, and then the next one is "Welcome to Primetime, bitch," Freddy Krueger. I think that's the line that changed it forever because there were like so many. I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. But like, welcome to Primetime, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows that. And then from like the fourth on, he had all the lines. And,
no. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know. But also is the plot. Like the plot itself, to me, first of all, there really wasn't much of a plot. There definitely were not likable characters again in this movie, and then you have the whole thing about a child. Now this is his sixth movie. He's only going after the child now. After how long?
Yeah.
I mean, that was 10 years. They said this took place 10 years after the last one, right? Like in movie terms, or wasn't it like 10 years in the future?
Movie terms,
like it was 10 years in the future. I thought.
I guess time-wise, yeah. You know what? That's right. Yeah.
I thought right. Okay, so you're telling me, and all those other movies. So you figure how long? Like a year apart, or two, whatever. So let's just say 15 years, and only now he's looking for his daughter. That made no sense. And then you already have a title called Dream Child, right? Or what is it? With the Dream Child?
Well, that was if Freddy had a kid. That's what that movie was.
Right, but he didn't have a kid. But that had nothing to be.
This would be like a new kid. This is a new kid, I guess.
Right, it was almost like they were just throwing a bunch of crap together just to get I don't know. It really like there was no sense in this movie.
No, that was the big problem with it, that they did that. The only thing I do sort of appreciate that he was in the movie versus the ones that we recently covered.
Correct.
He was in it throughout the whole thing, and you kind of, even though the story was about him having a kid, and we found out throughout the whole movie, which those are some really graphic scenes, man. We see him murdering his wife in front of his daughter.
Okay. So let me tell you something. I would watch that movie if they had like a prequel of Freddy like that, and showing him as Robert Englund, you know, before he became Freddy, but showing that like that. That's a story. That's like a Jeffrey Dahmer story. Like that's a story. Like that would be a cool horror movie, you know. And that whole section, I wanted more of that. That was like, you know, because you didn't see him. You never really. I don't think you see him in any of the movies except for like this movie, right? Or do you see him in other ones?
As himself? Maybe in maybe in flashbacks they show the parents of the town burning him, but very, very little. Like we didn't see him like with a kid, like at his killing room that he had, which is like frightening. Like he had that room not locked, which is the problem. If you can do all these elaborate killings, not get caught, keep the newspapers and everything, but you forget to close that door, not a good guy.
Well, apparently there's no children in the town, correct? So he killed everybody.
Well, that was so that's the thing we could talk about, and we'll get obviously, like always, we'll eventually get into the full part of the movie, but that's what the whole thing that threw me off was, that his whole point of doing all this was because they took away his kid. How many years ago? Yeah,
right. So okay. So let me ask you this: if you're in that town now, it's 10 years now, and there's no kids there because. And which apparently no one knows who Freddy Krueger is, because in this movie, these kids act like they've never heard of Freddy Krueger, which is ridiculous. But you have children that you're already living in that town, or you're looking to move in there, knowing that children are disappearing yearly. Would you stay there? Like, wouldn't you like leave? Like, shame on the parents for staying there, and they're still living there. Because Roseanne was in there, and she talked about having kids.
Well, Freddy killed their kids. That's why he wanted to take those. That's why she wanted to take them home.
Okay, but she still lives in the same town. Like, I mean, like, that's why. As a parent, you're a dad now. Would you have your child grow up in a town where kids are missing and usually found brutally murdered?
No. And a town that they still do a carnival, and the fact that there's still a teacher teaching all by himself.
Okay, we got to get okay. We'll get to those two things, because and they don't blink an eye like this is odd. They literally go there like, you know. So, like, all right, we got to get there. We didn't even start the movie yet.
Yeah, we did not. No. But let's get into it right now. And so wait,
before we start, one thing I did like the soundtrack.
Oh, the opening track was awesome. Who was that?
I sent it to you. The first song was the Goo Goo Dolls, and just like it felt like there was a lot of rock music throughout the whole movie. Yeah. So like it wasn't
like a Goo Goo Dolls. So is that like their first album?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I don't. When did this movie come out?
I'm saying year-wise. This came out in 90. Ooh, did this come out in 91?
Oh, really? I didn't realize
91.
Okay, so I didn't realize the Goo Goo Dolls were around that long. I thought they were like late 90s.
I never knew that either. Are they from the Pacific Northwest? Are they like that? Okay.
I'm not a Goo Goo Dolls groupie.
Why don't you Google it? I'll Google it. But no, so you know what's funny? I was trying to figure out the who came out with the name first. So you're telling me New Line copied the name of this movie? So when Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, the final Nightmare was 2 years before. Come on, man, that's a hack job.
Wait a second. You're comparing the final Friday to the final Nightmare?
They're the same name. It's the same end of the thing. What do you mean?
It's like McDonald's and McDowell's. It's not the same name. They're two different names.
Just use the final something.
Oh, because they use the word "the" and they use "final." That means that they can't use it.
Wow, they're from Buffalo, New York. They were formed the year I was born in '86.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Jeez.
Goo Goo Dolls. Yeah, the music was great in this movie. I gotta say, the music was great, and one of our friends, a former guest, made a cameo in this movie. If you noticed him, Orville Ketchum himself.
Oh, what I wrote down was creepy neighbor from Sorority House or Slumber Party?
Sorority House Massacre.
Yeah. Well, there were a few cameos in this movie, which just
good old Peter Sellos, man.
Yeah.
So the music was great. I totally agree with you with that. So then we get to the movie itself. Like the whole story of this movie is John Doe, who is the last Elm Street kid. He's on an airplane. Clearly, as we know how these movies work, he's in a nightmare, which we'll talk about later in the movie because there's a part that makes no sense to me when it comes to nightmare and like when in a nightmare and not in a nightmare. But we'll get into that. And I think you'll agree.
Well, I also hate the fact that this movie really just jumps in. Like usually in the other movies, it takes a little while for Freddy to get in there, like, kind of creep in. And it starts off right away, like silly. Yeah. And like this whole scene with this kid, and I did not like his character at all.
Yeah,
I didn't like him. And we'll talk about it later on. The girl that was a tough guy girl, they used that shtick before in other ones. So why are they bringing that back again also?
And why'd she survive? Too many people survived this movie.
Too many people. There weren't a lot of deaths. There really weren't.
No.
And there's a lot of bad choices for the teacher who's running the whole thing. So we'll get there. So that's fine. Okay.
And then while we're at this, because we're talking about, because he reminds me of like the role that he had to play. I think it was just, I'm not saying he did a bad job. I think the role itself was hard to play because you're playing somebody with amnesia, not knowing anything. It's kind of like in A New Beginning. Like that role that he had to play, like you had to almost be like very stoic in A New Beginning. In this, he's like kind of the same, kind of even looks like him in a way. And he has to be like, so like, I don't know.
Well, that's in the whole movie. Like
yeah.
But even in the beginning, so he's on this plane and he's like, I got to change my seat. What is changing the seat going to do at all? They had turbulence and they had whatever they're going on. Moving the seat was not going to do anything at all. And can you imagine sitting next to that guy? Like, I would hate to sit next to someone like that. How annoying, like ridiculous. Or, like, because he kept looking out the window. Put the blinds down. He had the blinds up the whole time.
Like, I saw this movie as a kid. I haven't seen it. I watched most of it just before I interviewed, like, Jeff, because he worked on it. But when I went and I was watching, I'm like, oh, where's Freddy? He's going to be on the plane? I thought he was going to be on the wing, like Twilight Zone.
Like Twilight Zone.
And the fact that it's not that, but then we get when John Doe, when he falls out of the airplane and he's like in his bed, and we get Wizard of Oz. But again, a perfect line for what these movies became. They became a spoof of themselves. And you get the line of, I'll get you my pretty and your little soul too.
But just the way it looked, like the special, again, this is the final one. You're going out. This is a successful franchise. The special effects were not great. Like when seeing Freddy come in on that tornado on the broom, whatever, or the bike, it just looked ridiculous. It really did.
For the time they talk about like those CGI like souls at the end of the movie, like those demons, they were so ahead of the time. And the director of this movie, who worked on the first one as like an office staff, and then she like became a producer on like the fourth or fifth one, and then she had the chance to direct. She actually like got the people that worked on Terminator. They were working on Terminator 2 while this movie was still going on. So that's how long Terminator 2, like the CGI effects took. The fact that movie came out in 93, I think, and they're working on this movie. She was able to see a piece of that movie.
Well,
I think use the same people.
I think you're right. I mean, I saw this movie in the theater, and yes, for the times,
really?
I did. I saw it in the theater.
You did? Did you put the 3D goggles on?
I did. And so that's what I was going to get. That's what I was going to get to. So yeah, I remember like I really remember like everybody getting ready to put because you waited the whole movie to put these 3D glasses on, which that's another thing in itself. I mean, the fact that you're touting it as a 3D movie, except for the last 10 minutes, like how is that a 3D movie? And there's a lot of this movie that would have been really cool in 3D, like the Breckin Meyer scene. That should have been 3D. Like that would have been very cool. But like, so, and when you watch this now, and we'll get to that part later on, but seeing how hokey they were doing the 3D, it makes the movie even worse. It was just so goofy. I mean, like, so obvious and so goofy that it ruins the movie. Like, you're either going to do the whole movie in 3D or don't even do it at all. Like, that's what I think. So,
oh man, that's great. No, I can't wait to talk about that and ask you questions about seeing that in the theater. So then we get John Doe. He wakes up from the dream, and then he like falls down a hill for a long, long time, and then he's landed right in front of Freddy's house on Elm Street.
So when he's first of all, he fell asleep and he was sleeping in jeans. In his, I was asking my daughter. So why were you wearing jeans? But he wasn't wearing shoes. But then his shoes flew off when he was tumbling down the hill. and so my question is, and you see this sometimes, but like, does that happen? Like, if you're gonna roll down a hill, do your shoes fly off? I mean, I can see if you're wearing flip flops, you know, but he was wearing sneakers, and both sneakers flew off because he was tumbling, and he was tumbling for about a minute going down the hill. Like, it wasn't a small, like, I don't know how high was that hill that he was falling that long, but his shoes flew off. Like, does that happen? Has your shoes ever flown off before?
They've never fallen off, but that's so funny. That's like a trope in so many movies. Like somebody gets punched, and their shoes somehow stick to the ground.
Yeah, they go flying, but the shoes stay right there. Or people always missing their shoes. All right.
And then a cameo. You have Bob Shea. He has to show up in all of his movies. The runner at New Line. He's like the ticket booth worker, and he has like the Freddy claw in his hand. And then we get Freddy on the bus. Freddy's driving him around, and what Freddy's idea is, and not to do because we have to get into the movie more and more, but just a real cool thing was that Peter Jackson and his writing partner at the time in the early 90s penned a script of this movie. And that because he wrote that script, obviously they didn't go with his idea. That formed his relationship with Bob Shea. And then years later, they work on Lord of the Rings together.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that script. Because I mean, I can't imagine what kind of like movie Peter Jackson would have had for this.
Well, I can tell you the idea, like the full script in itself. It's like one of the most, it's like the holy grail of horror fans. I tried to find it online, but basically one of the guys in the Never Sleep Again documentary, which I can't stress how great it is enough. He talks about it, and I love the idea. It basically takes place way after Freddy was gone, and in it, Freddy's like so weak, so the kids in the town take like sleeping pills to go to Freddy's world, find him, and taunt him and make fun of him, and then obviously he somehow is able to muster up the energy to kill one of them, and he keeps getting his strength back because that's how he gains strength. He needs fear in order to do that. So that's what he does in this movie. So obviously that happens in a lot of the movies, but the fact that he's going to use this John Doe basically shoots him through the bus window, and he breaks through, and then he's just on a street.
Why is he
in Springwood?
But why is he alive, John Doe? If Freddy killed everybody from Elm Street, he picked him from the beginning. Like, all right, I'm going to wait for this kid to grow up. Like, and why was he waiting for him to grow up? If he was so interested in getting his daughter, why did he wait 30 or 25 years?
Yeah, that's what I don't get either. Why did he wait so long? Was he like hoping he would find her? Like, well, no, she was an adult by then, so
maybe he didn't know.
What his whole
maybe he has more. Maybe he has a bunch of kids out there, and that he didn't know about. He could have had multiple partners.
Freddy gets around. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how he can get around when he's killing kids at night. Like, that's his thing. But he was killing kids. Oh, no, that's what I want to say to you. So if his whole thing was, I killed the kids of Springwood because they took my child, that's not true. He was killing before that happened because they didn't take his kid yet. And his wife and his daughter found the murder room.
No. He was killing kids of the parents that took his child. Right?
No, I know, but he was already killing kids before that. Like when we see that flashback scene.
Well, he was killing the kids of the parents that burned him.
Like, no, but he wasn't even burnt yet. This is like in the flashbacks in 66 or whatever, when the wife
Oh, okay.
and
I got you.
child walked into his murder room, saw like his finger knives and everything. Unless that was like a blended dream and it wasn't real.
So this movie basically is like the Halloween where they just forget about the entire franchise and like
it lies.
It lies.
It lied to me.
Okay, it did lie to
I
you.
just said that was so weird. Like they could have obviously like shoehorn that a little bit better, but the fact that it was like he says I killed their children because they took mine.
Would you prefer his child to have look like Freddy? And that would that have made it better?
With black hair, I like Lisa Zane is easy on the eyes in this movie. Maggie,
but of course. But I'm just saying, like, so you're having a little Freddy running around, then then it's okay because he was killing kids before, and he had the kid while he was Freddy.
Perfectly fine.
Okay, that would make more sense.
See Freddy on like Maury Povich. Yeah, you are the father. Yeah,
you know what?
That's my boy.
The way this movie was. And if I don't know if Maury Povich is around then or whatever, but I could see that happening. They could have done. He easily could have done. I mean, some of the stuff he did in this movie, Maury Povich, I could have seen him sitting there.
Phil Donahue, Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael around at this time.
Oh yeah,
easily he could have popped or Oprah. He could have fully jumped the shark.
Oh, absolutely.
So then we meet Breckin Meyer, a very, very, very young Breckin Meyer, 91. Man, he must have been 20 at the time. I don't even know. He was super young.
I mean, he's probably close to my age, right? So I mean,
probably yeah.
I was a junior in high school, 91. So
yeah, he just looks so young, and I guess he has that face because he played a college kid in Road Trip, and 13 years later. But we get the how about the sign on this building when it says Recovery House Shelter?
Okay. All right, we got to talk about this building because this is a recovery house where you're trying to help these teenagers or kid, whatever, to recover and get their life back together. And it looks like the dingiest place where people go to get drugs and use them. It doesn't if you're gonna. It's like if you have a kid who's an alcoholic, have him behind a bar. Have your office behind a bar, so he has to walk through the bar to go to your office. That's basically what they have here because they're walking through the dingiest place is their office. and inside is all spray painted.
Oh my god, I know. And I love the one thing I really thought was so funny was all the weapons. the fact that the fact that Breckin Meyer's dad is super pissed and he's I want results. Man, he's been here. He's going to be home in a week. I need results. And seconds later, the guy who looks he almost looks like a cop in every 80s movies, was the guy that ran the place when he was hey, look what I found in Spencer's room. Another pipe bomb. And I'm another pipe bomb? He's had more than one pipe bombs?
So they obviously seem to be kids that they should not be let out of supervision at all. And they seem to be roaming everywhere they want. Because where else do they get? Again, not surprising they're finding weapons in the location that they're at because it looks like a crack den over there. But even there's only 2 adults and 4 people. It almost looks is there a real place there? Are they just just going there? Because I don't feel like it's an organized place. It does.
It's not organized, and how many people are there? Really, we only see the 6, and it's a pretty big building.
That's what I mean. And even the chair he sits in, it looks like it's been thrown in a dumpster that he just put in his room. Everything just looks like they're living in an abandoned And this is where you want to help people. This is where you're bringing them. Say, hey, you don't want to live like this. Well, let's stay here and let's live like this. You don't want to live like this. Let's live like this.
Even to up it a notch, the fact that it is dirty and it has it looks like a homeless place. It looks like an abandoned warehouse.
It does.
And homeless people shoot up crack in or shoot up heroin. And you have Doc, played by the amazing Yaphet, and the fact that he's a doctor that is helping these kids, but he does research on dreams and he knows all these things about them. He has all this equipment in this hellhole. That's what That's what, as the viewer, we're supposed to look at. Like, oh, this makes sense. He would be here and not like at some university, like doing real work.
And who's bringing the kids there? I mean, I know the cops drop off the one kid, but like, it doesn't look like this. Like, they're just dropping off. Like, they grab the kid that have the amnesia. They drop him off there. They don't know anything about him. They don't know if he has any weapons or anything. They're like, yeah, let's just drop him off over there. Like, they're like these kids. The fact that they're able to sneak out, hide in a van, which makes no sense. We'll get to that. And it's like, it just this whole scenario just doesn't seem like nothing makes sense about this whole scenario.
No, not at all. Not at all. And then like Brecken, they talk about like with his dad, and he's like, I don't want to play football or date rape co-eds. And then we meet Tracy and Carlos. They're like fighting. Cool thing I like in this movie is I think the audio part of it when they do the breaking of the fourth wall. Like when Carlos takes out his hearing aid, and it, like, that must have been like, to see that obviously you saw in the theater. Like, I think that's really cool. And obviously his death scene is just so original.
Well, yeah, but that's with all Freddy, right? I mean, that's the one thing that is a very common thread. And again, this movie didn't go past it, that every death was original. You know, with Jason and Michael Myers, the same death every time. You get slashed, you die. You know, you might get a head chopped off, you might get stabbed in the stomach, but it's the same kind of deaths. These are very creative. Every single death is always a creative death. And, you know, props to the special effects department in all these movies, because that's the one thing that really stands out in these movies.
Yeah, I feel like you never see the same one twice.
You never do.
Minus that we do get a little karate. We do get a little karate in this one.
But again, their theme is to try to find something that goes along with the personality of the person dying, right? So the girl who works out, she's gonna die. You know, they're afraid of cockroaches. She's gonna die in there. The guy with the puppets and marionettes is gonna die that way. You know, so Breckenmeyer,
puppets and marionettes.
Yeah.
In video games, yeah. So then John Doe, when he gets brought in, because the cops are, again, terrible adults, because they're like, what do you think? Have you seen this one before? You think he's on drugs? Let's bring him in. And I love how...
No. Wait, hold on. Before you do that, they didn't want to just bring him in. They're like, they didn't want to fill out paperwork. So they didn't want... They go, who wants to fill out paperwork? So he goes, you know what? Let's just drop him off at that what he said, that digi place, whatever, you know, they're like, let's just drop him off there.
But I love how angry he is, but he does play amnesia well, because there's so many movies that don't get that right. Like, somebody has amnesia and they're very calm. Like, yeah, I don't know. Who are you? Like when somebody walks in the hospital room, like, oh, hi, Bob. And it's like, who are you?
Wait, you think that if you had amnesia, you're going to be angry all the time and yelling?
Because you don't know anything. People are expecting you to know stuff. And I love when he flies off the handle and he's like, do you have any caffeine or Coke? I meant the soda. And he starts like yelling because he wants to stay up. And then how about when they put him in his room, which, dude, that's the only other time. So there are more people. Those are all different random, probably man on bed number one in that room. That looks so freaky because the ceilings were super high. And what is he doing? He's seeing 99 bottles of beer on the wall.
No. It wasn't even 99. I think he was starting from like 1,000. Because he was And are you surprised that he mentioned like Coke and then he said because look at the place he was at? Because he was probably assuming, this place, you know, hands out Coke. You might as well, you know, I want to make sure I get myself clear.
So I can pick it up here. This is why I wanted to go to this one. I heard the Coke's great.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
And then Freddy's already like... So that's what I always wondered about Freddy. Like, I only thought he had his powers in Springwood. But I guess John Doe, like, he can travel around John Doe, because when Lisa Zane, Maggie, falls asleep, like, we see the article from the newspaper, like, come to life.
So in any of the movies, did outside of Elm Street, did anyone, like, what was it always in that area, right? No one outside of Elm Street had to deal with Freddy, correct?
Yeah, that's why they say that line. Like, that's why he says that to Maggie later. She's like, "This isn't Springwood," and he goes, "There's an Elm Street." Yeah,
right. So again, that's another one that doesn't follow the rules whatsoever. They just made it up in this movie.
No rules for this one. They just threw all the rules out the window and did whatever they needed to do. Yeah.
They did.
Oh my gosh. And then we get and then obviously the 999 bottles of beer on the wall didn't work because John Doe falls asleep. And then we get Lisa Zane's little girl, which we find out like pretty much right away. Like we can kind of even guess that. Like, did you remember that was her?
I did not, but it was so obvious. I mean, because just the way she acted, she was acting like she was hiding something. I just thought maybe she knew something. But I mean, I when I first saw it, probably not. I mean, again, I was in high school, but watching this now, I didn't remember I didn't even remember there was a child until they mentioned it, but she was hiding something. And again, made it very obvious.
Oh yeah. You could like tell right away. Cause I don't know. She was like very mysterious, and she's, I don't know, just her whole character. Like when she was interacting with all the other adults there, the only other two adults that were running the place with her, she just seemed like kind of like different. And I love when we see John Doe, like he's in the dream, he's going up the stairs in the Elm Street house, and then we cut to in the facility, and he's walking up air stairs. Well, why is that happening? That doesn't always happen in these movies. Sometimes the people are just laying in their bed and going wherever they are in their dream. And then when they get killed, they die in their bed. But for some reason in this one, he has to actually physically walk everywhere in his sleep.
And not to mention that they also disappear. They never disappeared in the past. Like, so again, the rules were out the window for every aspect of this movie, because you're right. There's no way they would see him walking upstairs. They would, if he was being murdered and thrown around the room, you'll see that. But you never see that. That was so dumb. And where was he going? He went upstairs, up to the second floor, or the stairs.
And then he basically he went up the stairs in the Elm Street house, in Freddy's house. And then he opened up the door and he saw himself in a padded room. But I thought that was pretty funny. Like, for it to come out of obviously a terrible nightmare if you are John Doe. And what do? You throw a cop out of a window.
Well, wait. He didn't throw the cop out of the first. Okay. Let's talk about this part right here. So first of all, he didn't throw the cop out the window. He almost seemed like he bumped into him or pushed. But how flimsy was that glass? And it
can't
broke.
afford good glass. It's almost shelter.
It broke so easily, and they made it look like that he was like out of like a 20th floor. It was one floor. Yeah. He fell to the grass. There wasn't like didn't the cop just get up and walk away?
He did, yeah. It reminded me of High School High with John Lovitz when they made fun of the substitute and he throws the kid out the window and he just lands on the grass like right out of it.
But they made it look like, because he falls so hard back, first of all, which is very difficult, I'm assuming, to go through a window, and his whole body goes through, shatters everywhere, and it looks like he's going flying. So I'm thinking like, all right, he's down out of the building. And he looks out, he's sitting right there on the grass. Like, so like, was that supposed to be a comic relief, or like, or did they just like, I don't know.
No, there's so much comic. No, it's so hard to guess when it comes to this movie, because like we talked about, like this movie jumps the shark and it's like such a caricature of itself. And then so he's telling Maggie about his dream and she's like, seems like I'm having the same dream. So then Maggie's like, you know what? And at the same time, this is when the three, we didn't talk about it earlier, when Carlos and Spencer and Trace
escaping.
Like, when she's sitting in the back, when they have their brain scheme, their foolproof plan, which is like the dumbest thing ever.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get to that right now, right? We're gonna get to their plan right now.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So, was their plan to just hide in a van? I mean, they're already out,
van, maybe, and then when they stop to get gas,
but they're already
jump out and run.
But at that point, you're already outside. Like, why do you need to get in the van? Which is, of course, unlocked, so they're able to get in the van. But why wouldn't they just run away? Like, if your plan is to escape where you are, Why wait? What if they weren't going anywhere? So they're gonna be in the van all night for 24, or let's just say the van doesn't leave for 3 days. No one leaves. They're waiting for 3 days in the van.
And they find him dead. They finally use it like a week later, and they're like just like laying there. But no, you're right. And that van, no joke, look like they shoot like porno movies in it, or like honestly, like the fact that I know obviously it fits with the shelter. Like if it was a clean van, we'd probably be talking about like, wait, they can afford a brand new van or a brand new SUV.
You're right.
But that was like so shitty looking.
So how is it supposed to help kids? It's almost like this is how we live, and we're going to show you how to adjust your lifestyle to live like this. Because really, like the van is crappy and shady, and the place, like there's nothing. Like you're bringing them into the area where they probably all get the drugs in the first place.
What do you think the meals are there? If that's what the van is, what are they eating? Like out of cans, like chef or deep for dinner?
You think there's a working kitchen there? There's no working kitchen there.
No, just cans, no pot, just cold ravioli out of a can. Good old Chef Boyardee. No, it just seems like the fact that they were sitting in that van, and the fact that she was like, you know what? Let me take him, and maybe if I bring him to Springwood, it'll help his amnesia, and he'll remember.
So why did she think Springwood is where he needed to go? Did he mention that?
No, he had that article on him.
Oh, okay.
That article was on him.
Okay.
Yeah, he had that on him, and I think he had like that. I think he had the whole folder on. Maybe like Freddy planted it on him.
Wait. So just because he has an article on it means that he must be from there? Like it's a newspaper article. Could be about anything. So if I had amnesia and I'm walking around with the Lakers, he must be from Los Angeles.
He must be on the Lakers. Let's get into LA now. We found this man on the street. He was sleeping on the sidewalk. Is he part of your team? No, he's not. Oh, shit, man. What are we going to do now? That was our best lead. And these people are supposed to be like doctors, and probably has like, she probably has like a doctorate and other. I don't know what the other guy does.
You know what? I'm going to say they're probably both homeless, and they're just pretending. It's like the dream team. They're probably just pretending because that's where they live, because nothing there shows professionalism at all. So I'm thinking they both live there. They're not doctors at all, because she does nothing to help them. In fact, she loses the kids about 3 times, lets them steal the truck later on. So I don't think they know what they're doing. I'm going to say they're homeless as well.
I agree. I love that, man. If people that listen to us really get the references. 2 Dream Team references in the last 2 reviews, man. That's something. I gotta watch that. I might watch that tonight while I go to sleep, because what a classic. But no, I agree. And I do love, there's 2 things in this movie. I forgot to mention it. You do see like a Springwood real estate sign.
Yes.
During like that I thought that was pretty cool when we like talked about Freddy vs. Jason and like selling that house. But I did love the sign when they entered the town. It was like stuck from the 50s, and it's like Springwood, a nice place to live. Like, no. Far from that.
And again, who's buying that house? Who's going to buy that house? We talk about this in all these movies when the realtor, is there one realtor that sells all these like crappy houses and neighborhoods? Because who's buying them?
It makes no sense. Maybe because there's no kids in town now, people would be like, oh my God, hun, but there's a really nice Florida room and we don't have kids.
It's a nice retirement community.
Yeah. Adults only. It's like one of those adults resorts, but it's a town in America. We can go there, hun. Oh my gosh! But the fact that John panics, and then the van crashes, and then you see these 3 people barrel through. It makes no sense. And I think they just had a sheet on them. They recovered themselves with a sheet. At
that point, as the administrator, wouldn't you turn the van around and drop them off?
100. Yeah, because it's not that far. It's not like she'd be like, hey, I'm going to go to Springwood. It's 7 hours away.
Correct.
It's probably 20 minutes away.
Correct. So you're taking the 3 people, which I'm assuming are supposed to be there, and they're snuck out, they're doing something illegal. 100% they would be dropped back off. But no, let's take them on the tour with everybody else.
Yeah, nope, no way. But the next scene, even though it is, it's frightening. It really, to me, is like frightening. Like just thinking about that idea that this town, obviously wouldn't really happen, but the roaches on the food, you have the smoking clowns. And my personal favorite, was the old man doing bumper cars alone. I love that. He was just going back and forth.
So this town, like, is it real? Like, is this a real town? Or like, see, this whole section does not make sense.
I think they're sleep. It would only make sense if they were all sleeping.
Correct.
Really, for the rest of the movie,
correct.
They would have to be all sleeping, but I don't think they are, because we see when they fall asleep. And,
correct.
But no, they don't. See, no, you're right. You know what? Are they sleeping? Because when they get to that point and they are tired in a scene that's coming up, which we'll get to, they must be sleeping.
The rest of this movie doesn't make sense because they act like nothing's going on. Like every scene going forward that they're coming across a guy going bumper cars by himself, a town that has no kids, that looks like the shadiest fair possible. And then again, you have the teacher and all, like they have to be in a dream. Like I feel like somehow they're all sleeping, or maybe the crash and they all fell asleep. They're unconscious.
You know what? That would honestly make sense, because no way the three of them fell asleep and got stuck in the town when they're driving in circles. We should kind of talk about this. One thing I want to mention before we get into that. Yeah.
They did it before. They did it in another movie. They did that whole scene.
They did it at the end of part 4. And then that's when it gets black and white. And then that's when Alice Johnson goes to the movie theater and gets sucked through. Yeah. Yep. No, they did.
So why would you do it again in another movie? Like a same exact thing.
Well, there's a lot of callbacks in this movie, which I guess for a last movie, it's not the best as the viewer, but maybe the people making it are like, oh, let's take little pieces of all of them, because when he's chopping his fingers off later in the movie, which we'll get into, I'm telling you, they didn't talk about it in the behind the scenes, but I bet you as much I know, but in the original, they used split piece soup. Like when he did that effect in the beginning and he sliced it for Amanda Weiss, and he goes, hey, and he sliced his finger and it started spraying everywhere. It looked just the same. It looked like they kind of did the same effect, but no, you're right. Like, why do the same thing? But one cool thing was when they made this movie, Twin Peaks was famous. It got really big. So that's why you kind of see a vibe of it in this town. Like everybody's so quirky and weird. And then what do we get? Carlos actually utters the line, very Twin Peaks here.
Yeah. It is very Twin. It was like the whole scenario was interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, no, when they were doing the circles over and over again, hey, let me drive. And then we do get the great part of, hey, Carlos, can you check the map? And then he opens the map, it's opening, and it says, you're fucked. Because the map says we're fucked. I love that.
That was pretty funny. That was funny. And that was pretty,
again, it kicks in again. Yeah. The soundtrack here, it's a different song, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah,
no, they had a lot of good rock. It was a good soundtrack. I'd be curious to see what other bands are on there. If they have the Goo Goo Dolls for the first song, I'd be curious who else is on that album.
Yeah, that era. I'm sure 91. No, I'll have to look it up. But yeah, so then we get a really cool, again, another movie, the 6th of the franchise. Images that are memorable is the chalk drawing of Freddy in the ground when you have Maggie and John Doe walking around.
But they never show you the full drawing. That was the first time you saw the full drawing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this.
That's good.
But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If she's Freddy's daughter, is she supposed to be the little girl drawing the truck?
Well, it's not the same girl that we see in the flashbacks, right? It kind of looks like her, I guess.
Well, it's usually like a blonde girl, I thought, right? Or like a little girl that's drawing. But like the one that's singing,
yeah.
Like, is that supposed to be his daughter? Like, or I don't know.
I don't know. Oh, you're talking about in the other movies when we always see the girls doing jump rope and stuff?
Or no, I just in general. I mean, it's obviously the same girl drawing each time, or it's supposed to be. You know, the same. There's always a little girl drawing. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that's how they got the movie. Maybe that's how they got the idea. They watch the old movies. They're like, hey, shit, Freddy should have a daughter. We always use these little girls in all these scenes. That's what we should do. I don't know.
See, that would be better if she had blonde hair. Then that would match better.
If she did, yeah, that would make sense. It kind of did. That's what they kind of did, because obviously kids' hair. Like when I was younger, I had like super blonde hair. Like even my daughter, she had like super blonde, and now it's getting like more brown. But the little girl in the flashback did have like brunette hair. So maybe that's what they kind of did to trick us. But they should have done blonde or something like that. But so let's get to the teacher.
Okay.
And I did love throughout the rest of the movie, every so often we saw the lines of the Freddy song. Really cool. Like one was on the newspaper, one was in the classroom, I believe. And then one we didn't see towards it till the very end, and it just said 9-10, never sleep again.
But that's what I mean then. So that's why they have to be sleeping. Because why would that be in the real world? Right. And again, so they walk into this room where a teacher is teaching a class. So at first I'm thinking he's like a ghost, right? But then he talks to them and he answers them as if they're students. And they really don't seem bothered at all by this. And the only way they would not be bothered is if they were in a dream and they saw this. Because if they're in real life,
when they crash, they all knock themselves out.
That would make the only sense.
I know. No, you're right.
Because they see, and the old lady at the house, right? Same thing. Like she's talking to nobody, and both times they're acting like this is something that's normal. And so, like to me, the only time when in all these movies when they're in a dream, there's obviously a lot of abnormal things going on. You never see them like question what's in their face. That's the same kind of thing that's going on right now. Because I think because how can they not question a teacher in an abandoned? I'm assuming it's an abandoned school because there's no kids there. So it's an abandoned school, and he's teaching to nobody.
Wait, do you mean when he says in 1493, Freddy swam across the sea? Like Freddy. Okay, if this class is called Freddy 101, you already messed up, buddy.
Okay, so Freddy, talking about Freddy. That would be a dream.
Yeah.
So,
100.
I'd be curious to look into this because it really, there's no way. Otherwise, or they just be like, you know what? We just don't care. It's the last movie, and we're just going to do what we want.
Yeah. I know, because when would they have fallen asleep? The three, like even Breck and Meyer, them. Yeah, and then them two. Like, you're right. Wouldn't they question even the whole town? That wouldn't really happen. Like, not a neighboring town or somebody in town is insane and be like, guys, let's just stop it with the goddamn carnival. Nobody goes. It's a waste of town resources.
Everybody seemed loony. I mean, again, we didn't really talk about Roseanne and Tom Arnold. They seemed loony. Like it was like it didn't seem like a normal town. That's why
Tom seemed normal. Tom seemed more normal than Roseanne, and I hated that they used the name Ethel.
I know.
There's only one Ethel in horror. A new beginning. That's it. But they were they only Roseanne thought she was gonna be on set for like a few hours because they were both fans of the franchise, so I think they kind of reached out to be in the movie, and then they wrote them a scene. But they said that I think that Ricky Dean Logan said Tom and Roseanne were all over each other in the trailer, just going at it. They were only together. It's so funny for a relationship that people talk about all the time. What were they together? They weren't together like a long time.
Wasn't he her bodyguard or something?
No, he was a writer on Roseanne.
Oh, I thought he was a bodyguard for her.
I don't know. Who's he guarding?
That's Roseanne. Or Roseanne was guarding him.
That's probably the true scenario of everything. So then we get, again, this is how kids have to be sleeping, because there's no way in hell I'm ever going to go into a rando house to sleep. And the fact that the house changes, so they must be sleeping. They walk into a house that looks perfectly fine with the Springwood Realty sign.
Correct.
And then when they walk in, you hear the house moving and things punching and breaking. No. But inside, everything is trashed. Wouldn't they be like, whoa, the outside looked really nice when we walked in. Now it looks like a hellhole. But they're used to that probably.
And it's like home. Oh, home sweet home. Yeah. They felt comfortable. I mean, the fact that the kid went upstairs, saw the dustiest, disgusting bed. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take a nap." Like
he's like, "Ooh, dust." Yes,
that's like it feels like my own bed. You know,
yes.
it's like they weren't creeped out by the house at all. The rooms, I mean, they had to be sleeping. How did they not hear that from the inside? Like all the stuff changing on the outside, and they get in. What does she do? Nice little roundhouse kick. That's how she entered the house with a little roundhouse there. But no, then we get the Carlos dream. That's like, again, the sixth one in the franchise. Not the greatest movie, of course, but we get a scene that's so memorable that everyone in the best kills of the franchise, I'm sure it's in the top 10. Just how creepy it is, like with his mom, like basically like. So Carlos's mom was a monster and like damaged his ears. That's basically that's awful.
What his nightmare is.
Yeah. That's awful.
And then Freddy repeated it. He did the same thing. He even cuts his ear off. Like, oh,
doesn't he? And he talks
audio.
He talks to the ear, right? Did he say anything to the ear, or like what was that? I wonder if that was an homage to what was that Tarantino? Reservoir Dogs.
That wasn't out yet.
Okay.
Reservoir Dogs came out. Ooh, maybe Tarantino stole that.
Oh, very, very similar. All right.
He was watching this movie and he's like, you know what this movie needs?
Wow, that's not a bad Tarantino.
Oh, really? I wasn't even going for that. Thank you.
Oh.
I'll take it. I'll put it on my wall.
Put it on your list.
I'll put it on my list. My bad Stallone, my Rubber Raggy.
All right. Quit while you're ahead. We had Tarantino. That's it.
All right, I'll take it. But so yeah, no, that whole audio part of the scene, like it going away, like when he cuts his ear and then he finally gives him back the hearing aid, and just the way that thing attaches to his head.
Oh
God, man, that looks good.
That was good. But you also got silly Freddy, right? He was like tiptoeing behind him, like again. Funny, like I love silly Freddy.
I was dying. I was really laughing at that.
I love silly Freddy, but not for Nightmare on Elm Street. I almost like feel like I don't know how to me it just takes away because it was too silly. Like it was a comedy. Like I feel like this movie was more comedy than it was horror.
Oh, it was rare horror. There was like maybe like a few moments of horror. Like
very few.
I think the scariest part was when he wasn't Freddy. Like when we saw him as
that was
Freddy
the creepiest part
for the mask. Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, you kept seeing him. You kept seeing him reach his arms out, but you don't see his face going for his daughter. Yep. Like it was all. It was very well done, that part. But him tiptoeing, I did laugh.
You know what? You're kind of right. I bet you if the Crystal Lake prequel that they're gonna do, I don't know how they're gonna do it. If that works, I think seeing the origins of Freddy would be that could be pretty good. I just don't know who could play him. That's the hardest thing.
I think they did a little of that with the new Nightmare on Elm Street. I know. But I think they did a little bit more of a backstory, but they really unfortunately it's too late, but I would have loved to seen Robert Englund do it himself. And that would have been great. But now he can be the father.
Like in the other movies, they talked about him being like sort of creepy with kids.
Yeah.
Like killing kids. But in the new one, they made it like he was creepy with kids and had Polaroids of kids. And I'm like, I don't need that for my Freddy. Because then he's not funny anymore.
No,
I can't be laughing at a guy that's taking Polaroids. Like,
the new one wasn't funny at all. I mean, like his face, they made his face look like it was an actual like burn victim. He didn't even look like it was a rough one to watch. I wasn't a fan.
No, me neither. But I did like when Freddy, when he drops like the one pin, Carlos dives and grabs it. He drops a ton of pins, and I did laugh at because of how great Robert is at doing it, his facial expressions and everything. But when he pulls out the chalkboard and it's tiny, and then whoop.
I had to. First of all, it looked like he was humping the chalkboard when he was when he was going in circles with his hand on the chalkboard. Yeah. He that's and only Robert could do that. I mean, like he was like again, it's very like his motion as Freddy is always amazing. Like he can do that. But I'm looking at him like, why is he humping the chalkboard as he's scratching it with his nails and like? And I honestly I had to turn my head a few times because I think that was the biggest horror part. The scariest part was hearing his claws on that on that chalkboard.
That like kills my teeth. nails on chalkboard.
It
like
does.
the worst. But then we get his head exploding. We went, nice hearing from your Carlos, which is good, man. I love such a great line. And now we get Spencer stoned on the couch and the broken TV that's shattered, which he's probably used to. That's probably his life. He's so used to looking at a broken TV and imagining that it's, even though his dad was rich, so he comes from a rich place. But now the TV's working, and we get
so ridiculous. See, this whole scene, to me, it was cool at first a little bit, and then it just got way silly. It got way silly.
Yeah.
It really did.
No. So silly, but we get Johnny Depp who came back. I wonder how that happened. I wonder if, like, it was a little bit of Johnny. I'm sure they made the call first, but
was he in the first one or second one?
Big?
Was he in the first
one? That was the movie that made his career.
Yeah. Okay.
But at this point, 21 Jump Street just ended. And I don't know, maybe Benny and June.
He made no. He made a few 80s comedies, like sex comedies, like a Meatball.
Oh,
he wasn't
really?
a Meatball. Yeah, he made. I forget. There was one where him and his guy were at
Private Resort.
Private Resort. Yeah.
Lisa London was in that, and her husband, I think, in the movie was the Dice Man, Andrew Dice.
Was he in that one or the other one? There was another one he was in. Oh no, he was in that. He was it Dice Clay in that one? I think no.
And Johnny Depp is hooking up with Lisa London while she's like pissed drunk. He's like carrying her around when she's like passed out drunk.
Yeah, you're right.
But no, he is in a bunch of those. I'm just saying at this point, he is big. Like looking back on it now for us, I bet you at the time when you saw him, you were probably like, oh, that's really cool. The guy from 21 Jump Street, because that's what it was. Because Crybaby might have just came out.
Right.
Edward Scissorhands didn't come out. Like all these movies that really catapulted him didn't come out yet. But still, what a cool cameo. And I love the fact that, and I wonder if he did that commercial. If he did that PSA, like this is your brain on drugs.
You know what? Everybody else did it, so I'm sure he did.
I know. But the fact that he gets smacked in the face with a frying pan by Freddy, I love it. And then we get the mute. And the fact that I didn't even guess earlier he was playing the video game in the little handheld. So I didn't even because it was so long before this, I didn't guess that was going to be that. I thought it was going to turn almost like a disco, because Freddy turns on the almost 1970s vibe, and you have everything going.
That song "In God of the Vita" is the acid trip song that's played in every movie. It really is the most common. So it was perfect for what they were doing, but the video game was silly. It was just so dumb.
And it was his dad his dad was jacked, which we saw the guy earlier who was skinny and tall.
Yeah.
He's jacked. He's whacking him with a tennis racket. I just love Freddy was in an office. He was in a little office, a
little office with his feet. Well, was his feet up. Yeah, his feet are up, I think. And he's got the fact that they have the joystick and then they have the power glove.
I mean,
see, it's dumb. It's so dumb.
Bob Shea, they reached out to Nintendo about it, and they were like, "Well, I don't know if you should do it," and they did it anyway. And that was such a memorable scene. Even when Robert says, if you look back in the history of movies and TV, he was really, that's one of the earliest jokes about video games, when he says cool graphics, dude, because I don't know, back then a video game was a video game. It's not like I ever played a video game back then.
Right.
Now it's different. Now when you play a video game, you're like, holy crap, the graphics are so great. But then it was it's a fun game.
Yeah, but no. I mean, I've had Super Nintendo and that, and I remember when a new Mario came out, for the new system, every time it was the graphics were so much better.
Oh, remember, when the new systems came out, yeah.
But even remember Pitfall? They made a brand new Pitfall that compared to the original. So I can see that
on PlayStation. Yeah, no, it looks so much better, and it was no, I get all that. Yeah.
Was there a Nightmare on Elm Street game? Did they ever have a game? I'm sure they had a game.
I'd be shocked if they only made a Friday the 13th game.
So that should have been the game he was playing. That would have been cool. Then have Freddy in the game.
That would have really jumped the shark. He's playing his own game.
Oh, okay.
Hey, pick it up at your local video. Pick it up. Rented this.
That would have jumped the shark. But everything else, using the Nintendo glove and everything else, did not jump the shark.
Now I'm playing with power. I don't know. It was just it was so corny, but my favorite part was the fact that he was playing that and they walked in, right? And then John Doe.
Well, he was missing it. Wasn't he missing at first, I thought? Or no, he was missing later on. So yeah.
No, they come back to the house and it's John and
right.
John and Tracy or John and Maggie walk in and they see Freddy in the office playing from like a weird angle, like far away.
Why would they see Freddy unless they're sleeping?
Exactly.
See?
So they're all sleeping, yeah.
So do they ever wake up then? Like, so how did that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, how are they sleeping? And later she gets put under by Doc to go to sleep.
And the
Can
fact
you
that
sleep in your sleep? Can you sleep in your dream?
In Inception, you do.
Oh, yeah,
that's where Inception got it from. See?
Yeah.
This movie, as bad as this movie was, a lot of movies copied it.
Inception, Reservoir Dogs have never gotten made. We kind of glossed over a scene. There's not too much in it, but again, to show that they must be in a dream, which is so funny that I didn't even think about it. I just thought everybody was weird in the town, but that totally makes sense. But the orphanage, when they go to the orphanage and the lady is talking to no one.
Yeah, I said that before. I said the lady. It said between a teacher and the old lady talking. To nobody.
Yeah, I didn't even mean her. Yeah,
and no one batted an eye. Either one. It was like that was totally normal.
And when was the last kid that he killed? Because there was a Freddy drawing in crayon in at the orphanage. So like, who drew that?
You're right. And
like,
and John Doe thinks he's the son, but he's like, is he a kid? Like, how old do you think he is? Like,
oh yeah, he couldn't be. And like for us watching those flashbacks, even though we see the girl, so that kind of ruins it.
Right.
They would have presented that in a different angle,
right?
Because they showed like 1966, so it's like, okay, well he's not 26.
I would say he'd be like 30 something. It's right. Would he be in his 30s? So I would have.
Well, it'd be 25. 25 would be the math on 66 to 91, if that's the timeline of the movie to a T.
Right. Okay.
So she was the only one that would make sense, but I don't think she's 25. So, but she was older. So what is she, 29? She was like 3 or 4 years old, maybe when she was a little.
She still looked young too. So I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah,
all right.
Doesn't make any sense. You know what? But I do love when they did just like bum rush Freddy in the office. They unplugged the cord, but that's when he has like the power glove. But he's like so pissed, like, "Hey, get out of here!" He has like a line like that to them. But God, and then so the worst part about the Breckenmeyer death was he's bouncing like a cartoon character in the house, bouncing down the stairs, and then he just goes down a hole.
Yeah.
Why would that be it? See, that's what makes no sense. That's how we know they're in a dream. You're right. Like, oh my God, I'm like really excited about this.
The fact that they shut the door on Freddy, like they were there, like they weren't pulled into the dream, so that made no sense either. So that's what I'm saying. Like it just, it just none of this makes sense. The whole movie. I want to look into it more. Like maybe Google has something with it because it had to be in a dream.
Yeah, because Carlos's bed was empty. And they just found his thing had blood on it. His hearing aid had blood on it when Tracy found it.
Right.
So the fact that happened to Carlos, but they all saw Spencer fall into a hole, basically to hell.
No, wasn't he getting smacked? Wasn't he getting smacked by a frying pan by Freddy or something? When he put the power glove on, Breckenmeyer.
Oh yeah, no, he was getting smacked by Freddy. That's why he was like kind of bouncing and going through everything.
No, his stomach. Remember? His stomach was when he was laying it on the ground, not when he was bouncing around the house. Or Freddy was jumping on. Yeah, he fell through the hole, but I guess he came back or something, and that's when Freddy started banging, like he was like jumping on him or something.
Yeah, so that makes no sense. So they saw Freddy playing the game, doing that, and then it affected him while he was asleep. Yeah,
but they didn't know what was happening to him when he was going to hit in the stomach. Okay. See, this movie's getting worse.
Yeah, that's really confusing.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't they? Yeah, that's.
We got to look into it.
Yeah. So now, even from there, after like the whole gates of hell, and they see it going into the ground, then like John wakes up. So this is when he seems like he's the only one that is sleeping to us as the viewer, but obviously we know just what we're talking about. None of that other stuff could have really happened.
Right.
Because John fell asleep. I think they were in the van.
Well, I mean, he could have been sleeping and waking up in his dream. Like, because
I guess
he wakes up because he's still dreaming, though. Because what happens?
Yeah, he like wakes up and then he's really still dreaming. He says, "I'm not getting out of this bed," and then the bed starts on fire.
In second, not even a second goes by. I mean, like, such a silly line.
Oh,
nothing's gonna make me get out of this bed. All right.
But no, what like you said, what was the line that you liked that made you laugh? When he says, "I know I'm your son."
Well, when he was he get thrown out of an airplane again, or how did he start falling?
I thought it was. I don't know.
Okay, so he's in a parachute and Freddy's next to him, and he goes, "I know," or Freddy has his claw out and he's going to start cutting down his rope, and John goes, "I know you're not going to kill me because you're my dad." He goes, "You think I'm your dad?" Wrong. I mean, like, just the way he says it, it was just so silly. Like, I was laughing. Like, it was funny. And then, so he's falling. This is how John Doe dies. So he's falling, which he would die anyway if he landed. So why do you need a bed of nails? Like,
because it's Freddy.
I know, but he slid the bed of nails there just in case he survives the fall from, who knows how high he is. From free falling. So let's put him on a bed of nails.
Just so we can get Robert pretending to be Wile E. Coyote.
That's really what he was in this movie. It really was.
It's unbelievable. But I love that that bed of nails had like really like nails that were close to each other. But when we see after he died, there was like maybe like 8 big holes like in his body and then he died. And then he was gone. And you're like, wait, this guy that we saw in the beginning of the movie that basically like is dead now, like he dies and not Tracy, like that made no sense. Like, why did she survive? Why did so many people survive?
I know so many. Like, how many more is that? Like, is there any other deaths?
No, that's the last death.
So there's 3 deaths. 3 deaths in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy, right? Wouldn't you think you'd pack it in for the last one? Like, give him a scene like in Freddy's Dead, like Freddy's Revenge in the second movie, like when he's like slashing all the kids at the pool party.
Oh,
like, give him something.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite scene when he jumps out of the ground. That's a pool party, right? Oh, I love that scene.
And the pool starts boiling. And the hot dogs just start randomly cooking everywhere. And he says, "You're all my children now." Yeah.
That which one was that?
Very cool.
The second
one. The second one.
Oh, so good.
Which is like really still good. Like when you go back and watch it.
Oh
that it wasn't in the first one. Just like a lot of sequels that we cover. The predecessor, when they're too good, it ruins the next.
I haven't watched the third one in a long time, so I used to be my favorite as a kid, but haven't seen it in a long time. Dream Warriors.
We got to do that one.
I know. I'm holding off.
We will. We'll do a good Freddy for you. But
all right.
Yeah. So then from there, this is where we get Freddy. So this is what's crazy. So Freddy's like there, like we see Freddy sort of looking at them, and then he says a line like, "I have to join them or I have to follow them." And he like does this thing with his body and then he jumps into her head.
Which, does that come into play at all?
No, really,
right?
No.
I thought that was going to make her like Freddy's going to control her. She's going to do something evil. Nothing. She acted normal. The rest she acted exactly the same. Like, what was the purpose of that? That made no sense. And if she was awake, how would he be able to do that?
Oh, I know. No, that makes no sense. And I think the only reason that they showed it that even happened was for her to have that longer flashback, because he could put that into her head of showing that, hey, I murdered your mom. Because remember, he even said, "Oh, she's dead because what did he say? Because she was going through mommy's things, so she had to take her medicine or something." And I'm like, holy crap, man. Like, watching him just whack her head over and over again on the tree till she was lifeless.
Yeah.
Something. And he didn't go to jail. He did not go to jail, but they took his kid away.
Well, the cops are pretty bad in this. I mean, it's so serious. They really are. They're useless.
Jeez.
Even when they go to the cop at the place and tell them, he's like, well, there's a lot of kids, like they're so nonchalant about it. He obviously knows about the history. He's got to know. I mean, as an adult, about Freddy, or about the missing children. How can you take anything lightly?
No, I know. The only other thing that if we didn't see Freddy jump into her body, if it was more of that, like, oh, did it happen? Like, if it was like for us as the audience, like, did he really just make that jump into her body? When she's like sitting there and she's looking at the window and there's like the condensation on the window and there's like claw marks that she's like making with her own fingers. So she's doing her own finger knives. Then it'd be like, oh, maybe that makes sense. But no, we saw him jump into her head.
Yeah.
And then she's, yeah. And then how about when she's crazy at this point, which makes no sense. So maybe that's another thing that Freddy did, which would make no sense because he wants to put the fear into people. But the fact that she lies to the guy that seems like he's pissed about working there and says, oh, they took the van and ran away. Why would they do that? And then nobody remembers them except Doc.
There's no remembering of any of the kids that died. You just lost three kids that they're missing at this point, right? They didn't see them. And they saw the one die, right? They saw who they see die. They saw Breckenmeyer die, right? Or
they saw Breckenmeyer die, and they saw John Doe die. So they know that those two are dead. Carlos, they assume that he's dead,
correct?
But they think
but they're acting like nothing. Like, all right, and they're going on with their business.
I think you're right. It's all a dream. That's the only reason that guy doesn't remember him, and Doc does because he does like the dream therapy.
Correct.
But how's he sleeping if we're in a dream?
It doesn't make sense.
How's he like jumping into the? Yeah, it makes no sense. And then Maggie goes home.
Well, yeah, but apparently that everybody could jump into each other's dreams. So maybe that's what the doctor does.
I guess.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, no, it makes zero
I can't wait
sense.
for Twitter to give us some answers when we post.
Oh, I hope so. I really hope at sequels only the people chime in and say, you know what, guys, you got it all wrong. They were sleeping they died. They died in the car accident. We were just watching, but no, I don't know. But the fact that, so then she goes, questions her mom. She finds the adoption papers, but her mom doesn't know who the parents were because they didn't tell. And then that's when we obviously already knew at this point.
Right.
So they didn't really have to do this scene, but she's obviously Freddy's her dad.
Yep.
And then she's crazy at this point because now she's wandering around in the rain. And then the last one was the newspaper headline that says 9/10 never sleep again. So I love those little eggs that they showed throughout the movie, which was cool, but geez, man.
No, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, that being a last movie, they should have made it like not as obvious as it was. So it would be more of a twist. And there really wasn't, because I feel like we all knew from the beginning.
Yeah, no, it was so plain and simple. Oh, okay. Especially we saw a little girl. Maybe we saw like the POV of a kid. They put a camera on somebody that was like crunched down.
That, but also the fact that she just acted so obvious in the beginning. So her mannerisms, the way she would act. I mean, she gave it away. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like they should have made it more of a twist.
Yeah, no, there should have been.
But whatever.
M. Night Shyamalan twist at that point. But no. So then we get so then this is like where the final act of the movie starts pretty much now, because this is where we talked about it already, but the flashback of the killings and her walking in on her dad and finding out that it's Freddy, which was a cool scene. I told you when my daughter saw where I froze the movie. It was right there where Freddy's in that room when she's like she sees herself in a dream as a little kid. And then she opens the door, and then she's the kid with pigtails, kind of weird, in the same outfit. But then Freddy just appears, and then from there, boom, Freddy's like, he breaks out of there, and he's going to the shelter, and he says, every town has an Elm Street.
Yep.
And where's he going? Tracy. So he goes after Tracy. She falls asleep. I don't know. She's still sleeping probably.
Why is he going after her if he now found his daughter?
Makes no sense. If that's what he wants, if that's why he was killing me,
that was the whole point. That's the whole plot of this movie. So now he found his daughter. Like I would have thought like he would have like had more interaction with his daughter. Like, all right, I want her to work for me or do what I do or whatever. Nothing. Or get her a little like pink glove with knives.
Yeah. Training knives. Like, come on, honey. Come on, you can do it. Which he does say later in the movie. He does kind of say like something along those lines. Oh, but no. So then, when Tracy's in the like terrible looking bathroom that looks like it's like an abandoned bus station. She looks down. She does the old look up, and then she's in her like apartment, like when she was a kid, and we see our buddy Peter Spellos, which is so cool. I didn't ask him too much about this, so we were talking more about all his work with like Jim Wynorski and doing like the Munchie movies and Sorority House Massacre 2. But man, this scene was kind of cool with him. Man, but what a creepy scene to have to do to play a dad like that, and like really weird tones to have in this movie. That's mostly sort of playful, the whole movie is really silly, and then
he seems really to always get a creepy role, huh?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But he looked the same. Like, was this around the same time as Sorority House?
Oh yeah. This is actually probably just before Sorority House. Probably 92.
Okay, he looked exactly the same. Like it was just, yeah.
Come on, give Daddy some honey. I'm like, oh. But his face mangled, that was great effects.
Oh yeah.
And he gets his face all beat when she's beating him with like a teapot or a coffee pot, that like a kettle pot.
Do you think that could happen to someone's face?
I don't know. It reminded me of Twilight Zone with the masks when they wear the masks.
Yeah,
and the face is like all mangled. I was like, holy shit, man. Yeah. And then Freddy pops in and he goes, no respect from kids these days.
Wait, doesn't he do a cartwheel? He does a cartwheel.
Freddy does?
I wrote it down. I wrote it down. I said Freddy. I said right after Mush face, I wrote down Freddy cartwheel.
I don't believe it. It makes sense.
He came in on a cartwheel.
Oh no, he did. Yeah, he did that. He cartwheeled and he said, "Kung fu this bitch," and then he starts, and then he like kicks her. Yeah,
so ridiculous. Why would he cartwheel?
Oh my god. And then we get another callback from the first movie, sort of, when she does the burn. She does the burn in her arm to get out of the dream, which is like super smart idea to get out, and then boom, Maggie's right there just in time. But like, is this a dream within a dream? Like Inception? Is this a dream within a dream?
It has to be. Because why did we see her fall asleep? No.
No, we saw her just look down from the sink, look up, and then she was in her.
That's what I mean. So even though she's waking up, see, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But okay, so now we're getting to the part where I guess the 3D is going to come in.
Well, not yet. First, we got Doc when he's going to look for Tracy in like the gym, and Freddy just shows up. So Doc, Doc makes sense for us as a viewer. If I just saw this Doc scene like put together, just seeing him and then what he does, because he's putting himself to sleep and he has an alarm set up to wake him up.
Right.
That makes sense, But I love that he sees Freddy and he immediately smartly grabs a bat and he kind of beats the shit out of him. He beats him up pretty good.
Well, you think about it, those that fight back usually do pretty well against Freddy. It's the ones that don't do anything, because Freddy does get beat up in a lot of these movies. Getting kicked in the face, punched, fight, whatever. But it's the ones that don't do anything, that just run. Yeah. Those are the ones that usually, So Freddy's not really a good fighter. I mean, not for nothing. Jason really kicked his butt in Jason.
He did. And to correct you a little bit, because I agree with you, but now it's looking at my notes, I was wrong. That's what was funny about the scene. It reminded me of, God, what movie was it that somebody was doing like all karate stuff and they're like, oi, 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 and then they run and then they get punched. Kind of like Batman. Do you remember Batman? When they're at the museum in the original Batman and the guy's doing all the stuff and then Batman knocks him out. That's what happened here. Freddy did the... Yeah.
Hold on a second. That noise you just made.
It was very Busta Rhymes, right? It's flawless impression.
But I'm just saying, like, that's your noise that if you're gonna fight someone, that's what's gonna come out of your mouth. Like,
I wouldn't do any of that because that's weird to do that, to make those sounds.
but in your head, you think that's what it sounds like?
No, not good.
That's what you just did.
That was pretty good. I like that one. No, but that's what was funny about that scene. It reminded me of those movies that do that trope of people like getting ready because he sees
Indiana Jones. With the gun. I guess that's the original one, and they've done it in like so many movies.
But Freddy does a cartwheel, and then he does like spins, and then the dog grabs the bat and knocks him down in like 3 swings, and he's like beating him up.
Oh, and that's where he did the cartwheel. That's what he did the cartwheel.
Yeah. Okay. But then Freddy gets up, and then he starts talking about all the ways that he's going to try to kill him, that everybody's tried to kill him. And then that's when he starts chopping up all his fingers, and he goes, they tried to burn me. They tried to bury me, and he's just chopping off each one, and you see like the green pus coming out.
Yep.
And then he gets woken up just in time. And then that's when, again, another copy of another movie, they do the ending from 1 when Nancy finds out when she wakes up and she grabs Freddy's hat.
Yep. Well, he grabbed his shirt. The doctor grabbed
a part of the sweater. Yeah.
Right. Which you could pull like a sweater, like a piece of sweater off like that. I don't think so.
Well, Freddy's worn the same sweater for.
That is true.
It's got to get kind of raggy. You got to upgrade, man.
Yeah, that is true.
He's in his own dream. Basically, like it's a nightmare. He goes in people's dreams and makes them nightmares, but he can dream a little sometimes, right? Can't he dream himself up a new sweater? Come on, man. Get in the game, Freddy.
Well, I mean, considering that it's what it's been through, I mean, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. So then 3D glasses time.
Oh, okay.
This is where when he gives it to her.
Okay.
And then I'll ask you your question.
Okay. First of all, what's the point of the glasses in the movie?
Well, none.
Okay.
At all. Okay.
And the fact that they look exactly like cardboard or whatever, paper 3D glasses. Like, what was the purpose? It's so stupid. But I do remember watching this in the theater. And I remember, everybody getting excited, seeing everybody put it on, because I think there was something like in the beginning of the movie, or maybe in the theater, they say, don't put it on until they tell you in the movie, or something like that.
So they were talking about in the documentary, what happened was, even though it's only the last 10, 15 minutes, that some movie theaters didn't give a shit and like didn't tell people when to do it, so they didn't know, and they had these.
And they wore it the whole movie. Oh,
and then they'd be like, "Oh, this looked no," or they wore it the whole movie, or they forgot to put it on, so it didn't like work with that effect. But his line to her when she's like 3D glasses, and he goes, "They mean nothing here, but can be anything in there." I'm like, can't she just friggin' not wear them and do anything she wants anyway?
Yeah, the glasses didn't seem to help her at all or do anything different. Oh,
no, you know what? Move weird. She moved weird.
I think in the movie theaters, I think they would have a glowing like glasses on the screen to tell you when to put it on.
Oh, that's smart.
I think that's
the concept of it isn't bad. Like they just did a 3D like an hour and a half away in PA. They did back to back Amityville 3D and Friday the 13th 3D. If that was closer, I would have went to it because it's cool, definitely a cool experience. But the fact that the way they did the 3D, like the way she is looking at her hand and her arms cocked, and I'm like, nobody moves like that.
So what it reminded me of is like, I don't know if you ever saw this when you were younger, but when 3D was kind of like kind of popular, there were like these old like I want to say movies from the 60s that would have like 3D. And like, I remember watching, like my father had like these sample movies or whatever. And like someone would take a pool stick and just like show it in there, like purposely do things just to test the audience so they can see what it's like. That's what they did in this movie. Like, it was like almost like they were doing an advertisement for 3D glasses.
Yeah.
Because they literally looked like they were looking at the camera at one point and like pointing things at it. It was just so like ridiculous. And when you watch it now without 3D glasses, it just looks so stupid.
And what's funny about it is this was after the 3D craze was done, because it didn't work obviously in the 80s.
Correct.
Like a lot of movies tried it and it was like, it's not worth it. The camera, like when I interviewed Joe Alves, Jaws 3D, like he talked about how much it sucked because you really it took a lot longer to set up, like the camera, nothing could be like messed up. I don't know if it was like the camera couldn't move. It was like a pain in the ass to do. It wasn't worth it.
That's probably why they only did like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's really why.
That's really
How much time do you have to do it? It probably
that's-
took them to shoot that last scene with 3D, probably like a week or two, which is probably a lot of money, like budget wise, to be able to do. But the only part I did like about the 3D was I like the creatures. I didn't like the ones that were flying around CGI wise, but then when she walked into that painting, which we didn't even mention, but when Doc talks about like, oh, I have this random painting on the wall, it's about, you know, the keepers of the nightmares. And then we find out Freddy says that was his job. Like that's what, so something we never knew about. Freddy was employed by these creatures to be able to live forever to do this. I'm like, come on, you're going to shoehorn that in one line.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
At minute 120.
See, that's why you really need a Freddy backstory, you know, of him, you know, growing up, you know, what kind of abuse that he probably went through as a child, then to show him as an adult what the creepy things he did, but then show him like how he became Freddy. Like we've never had that backstory. We don't know. We just know that he got burned and then he became Freddy. Like we don't know that like transition. Like, you know, Stranger Things. We saw how that guy became Vector or whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Like that would be cool to see how Freddy became Freddy.
Yeah, because we only got a few minutes. Like the next scene is like a little taste of it, and we get the great Alice Cooper, man. The guys that are musicians that we get, Dee Snider crushing and Sharknado 6. Was that Sharknado? That was Sharknado 6.
Yeah.
Alice Cooper in this one playing Freddy's dad. But yeah, we see all the kids tormenting Freddy and calling him the son of 100 maniacs. And then the Freddy teen guy was freaky as hell. Like he said he was really cool in the behind the scenes that he like had lunch with Robert and was able to pick his brain about the mannerisms and the character. But I don't know if I was coming down to beat the shit out of my son, which I would never do. But if I was doing that and he was cutting himself, I think I'd be like, you know what? You're doing enough damage on your own. I'm going to go upstairs and have a beer or something.
Yeah. Why add more to whatever's going on?
Yeah, you'd be like a wimp with all your other buddies that slug on their kids. Be like, hey, man, how was it last night? I beat the shit out of my kid. He was crying in his room. What about your kid? Hey, Kruger. Yeah, my son, he was cutting himself. And did you make it? Did you hit him real hard? He didn't even flinch like at all. He did nothing. But then we get the burning, and then that's where we see, I guess, kind of what Freddy alluded to like 10 minutes before when he was talking to Doc. And he was basically like, oh, they chose me because when he's getting burned, the CGI demons like come around him, and Freddy can be bad forever. And it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Just trying to shove these things in at the end of the movie that let us know this in the beginning of the movie.
Correct.
Like, not like it would help anymore.
Or make the movie about that. Like it was like they'd feel like if this was the final one, we got to explain a little something. So they just threw it together. But it was just mishmash. You know, it was just
But I did like we alluded to this scene earlier, but she sees it again, like in the flashback, and it's like, don't worry, honey, mommy has to take her medicine for snooping in daddy's special work. And then Freddy just pops up behind her and goes, but you did tell, didn't you? And this is where she's trying to hold him, like in the boiler room, where she's always at, holding him, and then Doc, they bring her back, but she's all by herself.
Well, she hugs him.
Freddy.
She was hugging him.
Yes, she was. And his head was growing, and there was a point that his head grew that he looked like Kevin Nealon in Little Nicky with boobs on his head, because there was like boobs coming out for some reason. His arms were stretching.
Like he was bubbling. He was bubbling.
Yes. He was like Stretch Armstrong for a second. And that's why I think he wasn't going to get pulled in, but then they both just like disintegrated into air. And then out of nowhere.
But see, okay, so even if they do that, wouldn't he appear right away with her? Like if you're pulling because this happened in other movies. If you're pulling on,
happened in the first movie, but Nancy woke up on her bed, and then she was like, "Oh, he's not here," and then he popped up from the other side of the.
See, okay, so that doesn't make sense then, because if you're taking like in one movie, didn't they take his hat or something like?
In the first one, and then in this one, he took the sweater. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're taking that, how come if you're taking him, he's not with you?
Exactly.
Because he doesn't have any powers in the real world, so he shouldn't be disappearing.
Which is the only funny part of it. That he doesn't have the powers because he's kind of weak. But then it made me think of Freddy vs. Jason, that he actually was a good fighter. So was everybody dreaming in that movie? Because he was like kind of fighting with Jason. Which
no, he was in. No, that's why he got his butt kicked. He was only fighting well in the.
No, I know, but in this one, he was getting his ass kicked by Maggie, and he was actually sort of holding his own against Jason for a little bit at points in that final fight in that movie. But that's for another episode, which you guys can listen to, sequelsonly.com/, Freddy versus Jason. But no, so in this scene, this is where we get then Doc and Tracy get locked up somehow, and it's just Freddy. What room is this in the place that there's like a caged room? Because there's multiple caged rooms, because while Freddy and her and Maggie are locked in a caged room one-on-one, you get Doc and Tracy going into another caged room.
You know what it is?
All the weapons.
It's an abandoned zoo.
Abandoned zoo, yeah.
That's what. That's probably what it is. That's
the only thing that makes sense.
It's an abandoned zoo.
God, no, that is the only thing that makes sense. But like the fact that they go, oh, these are all the weapons. The cops never want to take them, so we just keep them here.
They just happen to have a stick of dynamite. That's one of the weapons they have there.
Wait. That's the one that you're talking about, not the Chinese throwing stars, or the baseball bat with the nail in it.
Wait a second. You think a Chinese star or a nail that someone could put into a bat is more rare than having a stick of dynamite that looked like it was from 1850 and like it looked like one of those it was a stick of dynamite that
it was Wile E. Coyotes. It was from Acme Company.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
No, super ridiculous that they do that. But then we get so then we sort of get like the one-on-one, and this is where Freddy kind of tries to get remorse from Maggie. He says, "Did you see what they did to me as a kid?" And then, dude, she has the glove at this point. And he says, "I didn't need a glove to kill your bitch of a mother." I'm like, whoa! And what does she do? She's badass. She throws a headbutt. She bites his nose, and then when she breaks his hand, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was kind of like ow, like trying to put his
doesn't he pop it back in though?
Yeah, he does.
Well, when he gets beat up, it is very funny because he's always like, he's comical about it. Like he shows that he's in pain, but he's comical about it. So I think
funny. Even at this point, he's trying to put the glove on. I think he's trying to put the glove on. And then
he was with a broken hand.
Yes, and this is when Tracy pops in and she lifts open the cage, which she didn't really have to, because I bet you can fit a Chinese star between the gaps in a fence. But anyway, she throws one of those. First a knife. She throws the knife perfectly. I guess Maggie's a knife thrower.
Everything she threw was perfect. It landed perfectly.
Perfect.
Everything.
She's in a dream.
Yep,
Still, I guess. And I guess she's not. That makes no sense. Well, so now she's definitely not in a dream because Freddy is mortal.
Right. Which makes it even worse because her accuracy of throwing things is incredible. So that would be stuff that would be in a dream. So, and when she gets the glove, see, I thought it would have been cool if she almost like Lord of the Rings, right? When you put the ring on, you start acting a little funny. You start acting a little different. Like if you're putting a glove on, you start getting that feeling of killing or something. That would have been cool, but no, nothing.
Yeah, nothing at all. Nothing at all.
And you know what? Hold on. Speaking of the glove, where did Freddy get it?
Oh, he made it. That was like kind of what it was in that one flashback scene. I don't know where he thought of it. But
okay, where would he make it? He has a workbench.
Oh no, he has a workshop. Yeah, we've seen that in one of the openings to one of the movies. They have a long scene of
he has a workshop by the boiler room.
By the boiler room, yeah. But he had different knives in that one scene. It had different blades on the top of it, so they look like sort of different. But I guess he probably made like different prototypes. So this is the one he landed on. That really, really. That he wanted to sell to Shark Tank.
Pretty creative.
Mark Cuban, I want you to invest in my finger knife glove. Mr. Wonderful, what do you think? But no, so that scene, so when she put the knife, the throwing star sticks him onto the wall, she puts the glove on, like you said, and sticks him in the stomach, and then Tracy's like, here, this, and it's the dynamite. And I think, was it lit when she threw it, or did Maggie light it? I forget.
I don't remember either, but I'm assuming it might be lit. because how would she light it? She had the glove on.
Oh, that is true.
So,
That is true. But then
again,
she sticks it.
Yeah, go ahead.
The line is great. Happy Father's Day, which did this movie, do you remember if it came out around then? Because that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
not like
remember.
it would make sense years later if you didn't see it on Father's Day, but the fact that she said Happy Father's Day, and then when it's about to go off, he says, kids. Explodes.
So, and then you see now, but the 3D glasses are off at this point, right?
Dude, this is what I was about to say when I just read this after what we just talked about for the last hour 30. The glasses reappear on her face.
Right. But so she took them off, so everybody in the audience takes your glasses off at this point. So that last scene was not in 3D. Right? Because the whole point was to put them on when she puts them on, take them off when she takes them off. So there's a lot in that last scene that could have been 3D. That should have been her throwing at things and all that stuff. But no.
God, that makes no sense. But I did like the end of the movie. If it was really going to truly be the last movie, the song was cool. I wonder who did that because it was called Freddy's Dead. And then the best of his kills on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
That was cool.
So there were cool, man.
No,
that was again, Freddy's. Yeah,
there were cool stuff. There was funny stuff. You know, again, it's Freddy, right? You're always gonna love whatever he does. But to me, again, bottom line is, I feel like it ruined. It just ruined what like Nightmare on Elm Street was. It was very silly. It was very hokey. But you're gonna ask me if I would recommend it. You have to. It's, part of the franchise.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, as much as I hate it, again, it's Freddy. I still enjoy all the movies, so I enjoyed watching, him. It wasn't like I wasn't tortured watching it. I just hated it to be part of the franchise to end it on that note. I think that's what the better. But if you like Nightmare on Elm Street, you have to watch it because it's classic Freddy.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to the Freddy movies, even though I don't really like Dream Child, they're enjoyable, like no matter what, because of him. Like it could be the worst script, no characters that you enjoy. You enjoy him. In the other movies, I love Jason, and I pretty much like all the Jason movies, minus a couple of them. But like the other movies, if there's no other good supporting characters, I'm over it. But I'd rather watch a bad Nightmare on Elm Street than a bad Halloween or a bad Chucky, bad Leprechaun.
No, I understand, but of course. Well, but he also talks where the other ones don't talk.
That's
right?
what I mean. Yeah.
Right. So you have the conversations, you have the one-liners. So like, maybe if Jason had the one-liners and maybe it would be different. But yeah, if it's a bad Friday 13th or Halloween, it's just not the same. It's just dry. Where this, you'll still laugh. You'll laugh at the Nintendo part. As stupid and silly as it was, you'll still laugh at some of the things that Freddy does. The concentration that he's using to control the game, how he's like into it. It's funny, so like little things like that.
He never mails it in. That's one thing about him. He gives 110% to that character, and only he can. Like, I mean, I don't care. You could find someone to try to put on the makeup and try to look as close as you can with him. They would not have the mannerism, the voice, or like just they wouldn't be able to do it. Like he is. Like there's no way you're ever going to find another Harry Potter. You're not going to find another Freddy, no matter what. No, 100%. Harry Potter and Freddy in the same sentence. Look at that. I love that.
That's the next movie.
And then before we talk about the next movie that we're going to be covering, I got to talk about on Twitter. I wanted people to be like, hey, because we had this bit that we talked about one time, and we always forgot about it, and I was really lazy and like adding in graphics. But I put it to people. What do you think of this movie? Rank it 1 out of 5 Freddy Power Gloves. So just a few that I'll run through real quick. At Jermar JS90, he said it was too fast paced of a premise, which I totally agree. But no matter what, people love the video game sequence. He loves John Doe's death. Loves the opening theme song. So a lot of things that we like. He gave it 6.8 out of 10. So not 1 out of 5 Power Gloves, but that's fine. Manic Movie Monday podcast. They saw that in the theater as well. She saw it. She hated it then and hate it now, but it introduced me to the deliciously handsome Breckenmeyer. So maybe 1.5 gloves.
Yeesh.
Breckenmeyer, look at that.
Yeah, all
Sex
right.
symbol. I never knew that.
Yeah, wow, he's got one fan.
I would say most of the people, I can tell you, Adrian Lay, she wrote terrible movie. Chris Moyse, our buddy, he wrote awful binge movies. Absolutely zero in every way. One of the worst of movies of the decade.
You know what? This might have been the first movie that the audience actually agrees with me. Because I'm usually I feel like I'm the outcast with a lot of these movies, you know, especially in the horror movies. You got all these fans, but I'm not used to having people agree with me on a movie. So this feels good.
Yeah. There's only one that liked it. Sunny Chong wrote 1 out of 5, indistinguishable from the other movies. But then we get 2 people, Scott Hathaway, who listens to us. He's a really cool dude. Love it to death. Only Freddy that came out when I was aware of the series. I used to tell my mom I was renting Drop Dead Fred, but instead would rent this 4.5 Freddy Power Gloves.
Wow.
So yeah, no, I totally spaced on doing that when people took the time to write about Halloween Resurrection. So yeah, so think about it. We did Halloween on Halloween. Then we do a Freddy's Dead. So what else can we do? We got to do our favorite, our guy, Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th, Part 7, A New Blood. The first time that Kane Hodder donned the mask. It's a little mixture of Carrie. It's Carrie versus Jason, sort of. And some cool kills in it. And good behind the scenes. I'm excited to talk about that one. And for it, I was lucky enough to talk to Stacey Greason. She played one of the first deaths in the movie, her and her boyfriend, who's played by Billy Butler, which is funny. She told me a cool story that they did a horror movie like the year before, and he was already cast in Friday 7, and he called her and said, hey, do you want to play my girlfriend in this scene? So she was able to be in this movie for like 3 or 4 things. But what she's known for, that if any of our listeners are fans of Days of Our Lives, she was Isabella Toscano. She was on that show for, God, I don't know, 2,000 episodes?
Wow.
Like, she was on it for so long. Now she's an author. We talked about her new book, which I'll make sure to put in the episode notes. I should have been a better person and wrote that down, but we talked about that. But Stacey was a blast, and I'm excited to talk about this movie because anytime we could talk about a Friday the 13th, it's always fun. So don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast, and follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.